no.
Speaking up is hard to do.
Speaking up is hard to do.
I understood the true meaning of this phrase
I understood the true meaning of phrase
exactly 1 month ago
exactly 1 month ago
when my wife and I became new parents.
when my wife and I became new parents.
And it was an amazing moment. It was exhilarating and elating.
It was an exciting moment, amazing moment. It was exhilarating and elating,
But it was also scary
but it was also scary
and terrifying.
and terrifying.
And it got particularly terrifying when we got home from the hospital.
And it got particularly terrifying when we got home from hospital.
And we were unsure whether our little baby boy was getting enough nutrients from breastfeeding.
We're not unsure. We are unsure whether our newborn boy, little boy, was getting enough nutrients from breastfeeding.
And we wanted to call our pediatrician, but we also didn't want to make a bad first impression.
We wanted to call our pediatrician.
Or come across as a crazy neurotic parent.
Come across as a crazy neurotic parent. Crazy neurotic parents. Veterinarian. Pediatrician.
Pediatrician.
Veterinarian.
So we worried and we waited.
So we worried and we waited.
When we got to the doctor's office the next day, she immediately gave him formula because he was pretty dehydrated.
She merely gave him a formula because he was pretty much dehydrated.
Now, our son is fine now, and our doctor has reassured us we can always contact her.
Our baby is fine now, and our doctor has reassured us we can always contact her. Reassured us.
But in that moment, I should have spoken up, but I didn't.
But in that moment, I should have spoken up, but I didn't.
But sometimes we speak up when we shouldn't.
But sometimes we speak up when we shouldn't.
And I learned that over 10 years ago
And I learned that over 10 years ago
when I let my twin brother down.
My twin brother
is a documentary filmmaker.
My twin brother is a documentary filmmaker.
And for one of his first films, he got an offer from a distribution company.
And for one of his first documentary films, he got an offer from a distribution company.
And he was excited, and he was inclined to
He was excited and he was inclined
accept the offer.
to accept the offer.
But as a negotiations researcher, I insisted he make
But as a negotiation researcher, I insisted
a counteroffer.
he make a counteroffer.
And I helped him craft the perfect one.
And I helped him craft the perfect one.
And it was perfect. It was perfectly insulting.
And it was perfect. It was perfectly insulting.
The company was so offended, they literally withdrew the offer.
The company was so offended, they literally withdrew the offer.
And my brother was left with nothing.
And my brother is left with nothing.
And I've asked people all over the world about this dilemma of speaking up.
And I asked people all over the world about this dilemma of speaking up.
When they can assert themselves.
When they can assert themselves.
When they can push their interest.
when they can push the interest,
when they can express an opinion,
when they can express an opinion,
when they can make an ambitious ask.
when they can make an ambitious ask.
And the range of stories are varied and diverse,
And the range of stories are varied and diverse,
but they also make up a universal tapestry.
but it also make up a universal tapestry.
Can I correct my boss
Can I correct my boss
when they make a mistake?
when he make a mistake?
Can I confront my coworker
Can I confront my coworker
who keeps stepping on my toes?
because he keeps stepping on my toes?
Can I challenge my friends
Can I
in
challenge my friend?
a sensitive joke?
Friend's insensitive joke.
Can I tell the person I love the most my deepest insecurities?
Can I tell the person I love the most my deepest insecurity?
And through these experiences, I've come to recognize
And through these experiences, I came to recognize
that each of us have something called a range of acceptable behavior.
each of us has something called the range of acceptable behavior.
Now, sometimes we're too strong.
Sometimes we're too strong.
We push ourselves too much. That's what happened with my brother.
We push ourselves too much. That's what happened with my brother.
Even making an offer was outside his range of acceptable behavior.
Even making an offer outside his range of acceptable behavior.
But sometimes we're too weak.
But sometimes we're too weak.
That's what happened with my wife and I.
That's what happens with wife and I.
And this range
Wife and I.
of acceptable behaviors, when we stay within our range,
And this range of acceptable behavior, when we stay within our range,
we're rewarded.
we're rewarded.
And we step outside that range,
And when we step outside the range,
we get punished.
we
In
get punished
a variety of ways. We get
in a variety of ways.
dismissed or demeaned or even ostracized.
We get dismissed, demeaned, or even ostracized.
Or we lose that raise or that promotion or that deal.
Or we lose the raise or the promotion or the deal.
Now, the first thing we need to know is, what is my range?
So the first thing we need to know is, what is my range?
But the key thing is, our range isn't fixed.
But the key thing is, our range isn't fixed.
It's actually pretty dynamic. It
It's actually pretty dynamic.
expands and it narrows based on the context.
It expands and narrows based on the context.
And there's one thing that determines that range more than anything else,
Then there's one thing that determines the range of behavior. Then there's one thing that determines the range more than anything else,
and that's your power.
and that's your power.
Your power determines your range.
Your power determines your range.
Well, what is power?
Right.
Power comes in lots of forms.
Power comes in lots of forms.
In negotiations, it comes in the form of alternatives.
In negotiation, it comes in the form of alternatives.
So my brother had no alternatives. He lacked power.
So my brother had no alternative. He lacked power.
The company had lots of alternatives. They had power.
The company had lots of alternatives. They had power.
Or sometimes it's being new to a country like an immigrant, or
Sometimes being new to a country like an immigrant,
new to an organization,
or new to an organization,
or new to an experience,
or new to an experience,
like my wife and I as new parents.
like my wife and I as a new parent.
Sometimes it's at work, where someone's the boss and someone's the subordinate.
Sometimes it works. Someone's the boss and someone's the subordinate.
Sometimes it's in relationships, where one person's more invested than the other person.
Sometimes it's in a relationship. One person is more invested than the other person.
And the key thing is that when we have lots of power,
And the key thing is, when we have lots of power,
our range is very wide.
our range is very wide.
We have a lot of leeway in
We have a lot of leeway
how to behave.
in how to behave. A lot of leeway.
But when we lack power, our range narrows.
But when we lack power, our range narrows.
We have very little leeway.
There's very little leeway.
And the problem is that when our range narrows, that produces something called the low power double bind.
And now, and when our range narrows, they produce something called low power double bind.
And the low power double bind happens when, if we don't speak up, we go unnoticed.
The low power double bind happens when we don't speak up. You go unnoticed.
But if we do speak up, we get punished.
But we do speak up, we get punished.
Now, many of you have heard the phrase "the double bind" and connected it with one thing.
And many of you have heard the phrase "the double bind," and connected it with one thing.
And that's gender.
And that's gender, double bind.
The gender double bind is women who don't speak up.
The gender double bind is women who don't speak up,
Go unnoticed. And women who do speak up.
And women who do speak up
get punished. And the key thing is that women have the same need as men to speak up.
The key thing is that women have the same need as the men to speak up.
But they have barriers to doing so.
But
what my research has shown over the last 2 decades is that what looks like a gender difference, it's not really a gender double bind.
Is that what looks like gender difference is not really a gender double bind.
It's really a low power double bind.
It's a low power double bind.
And what looks like a gender difference are really often just power differences in disguise.
And what it looks like a gender difference is really just power differences in disguise.
Oftentimes we see a difference between a man and a woman or men and women, and we think biological cause. There's something
Oftentimes we see a difference between man and woman
fundamentally different about the sexes. But in study after study, I found that a better explanation for many sex differences.
But in study after study, I found there's a better explanation for many sex differences.
Is really power.
It's really power.
And so it's the low power double bind. And the low power double bind means that we have a narrow range and we lack power. We have a narrow range and our double bind is very large.
And so it's the low power double bind, and the low power double bind means we have a narrow range and we lack power. We have a narrow range and our double bind is very large. That's boring.
So we need to find ways to expand our range. And over the last couple of decades, my colleagues and I have found 2 things really matter. The first, you seem powerful in your own eyes.
The first is you seem powerful in your own eyes.
The second, you seem powerful in the eyes of others.
Second, you seem powerful in the eyes of others.
When I feel powerful, I feel confident, not fearful.
When I feel powerful, I feel confident, not fearful.
I expand my own range. When other people see me as powerful, they grant me a wider range. So we need tools to expand our range of acceptable behavior.
So we need a tool to expand our range of acceptable behavior.
And I'm going to give you a set of tools today. Now, speaking up is risky. But these tools will lower your risk of speaking up.
Speaking up.
So the first tool I'm going to give you got discovered in negotiations.
The first tool I'm going to give you got discovered in negotiation.
And an important finding.
What are you talking about?
On average, women make less ambitious offers. And get worse outcomes than men at the bargaining table.
at the bargaining table. On average, women offer less ambitious offers with worse outcomes than men at the bargaining table.
But Hannah Raleigh Bowles and Emily Montoya have discovered there's one situation where women get the same outcomes as men
where women get the same outcome as men
and are just as ambitious.
and just as ambitious.
That's when they advocate for others.
That's when they advocate for others.
And when they advocate for others, they discover their own range and expand it in their own mind.
When they advocate for others, they discover their own range and expand it in their own minds.
They become more assertive.
They become more assertive. Assertive.
Now, this is sometimes called the mama bear effect.
This is something called the mama bear effect.
Like a mama bear defending her cubs, when we advocate for others, we can discover our own voice.
When a mama bear cares for his cub, advocate for others. What was that? When like a mama bear defending her cubs, when we advocate for others, we can discover our own voice.
But sometimes we have to advocate for ourselves. How do we do that? And one of the most important tools we have to advocate for ourselves is something called perspective taking. And perspective taking is really simple. It's simply looking at the world through the eyes of another person.
It's simply looking at the world through the eyes of another person.
And it's one of the most important tools we have to expand our range.
And it's one of the most important tools we have to expand our range.
When I take your perspective and I think about what you really want,
When I take your perspective and I think about what you really want,
you're more likely to give me what I really want.
you're more likely to give me what I really want.
But here's the problem. Perspective taking is hard to do. So let's do a little experiment.
Let's do a little experiment.
I want you all to hold your hand just like this.
I want you all to hold your hand just like this.
Your finger, put it up.
Put it up.
And I want you to draw a capital letter E on your forehead as quickly as possible.
And I want you to draw a capital letter E in your forehead as quickly as possible.
Okay, it turns out that we can draw this E in one of two ways, and this was originally designed as a test of perspective taking.
It turns out we can draw this E in one of two ways, and this was originally designed as a test of perspective taking.
I'm going to show you two pictures
of
someone with an E on their forehead.
Of someone with an E on their forehead.
My former student, Erica Hall. And you can see over here, that's the correct E.
And you can see over here, that's the correct E. Okay.
I drew the E, so it looks like an E to another person.
I drew the E, so it looks like an E to other person.
That's the perspective taking E. Because it looks like an E from someone else's vantage point.
Because this looks like an E from someone else's vantage point.
But this E over here is the self-focused E.
But this E over here is a self-focused E.
And we often get self-focused.
And we often get self-focused.
And we particularly get self-focused in a crisis.
Right.
I want to tell you about a particular crisis.
I want to tell you about a particular crisis.
A man walks into a bank in Watsonville, California.
A man walks into a bank in Watsonville, California.
And he says, "Give me $2,000 or I'm blowing the whole bank up with a bomb."
Give me $2,000 or I'll blow the whole bank with the bomb.
Now the bank manager didn't give him the money.
And the bank manager didn't give him the money.
She took a step back.
She took a step back.
She took his perspective.
She took his perspective.
And she noticed something really important.
She noticed something very important.
He asked for a specific amount of money.
He asked for a specific amount of money.
So she said, "Why did you ask for $2,000?"
Why did you ask for $2,000?
And he said, "My friend's going to be evicted
My friend's gonna be evicted
unless I get him $2,000 immediately."
unless I get him $2,000 immediately.
And she said, "Oh, you don't want to rob the bank.
Oh, you don't want to rob the bank?
You want to take out a loan.
You want to take out a loan?
Why don't you come back to my office and we can have you fill out the paperwork?"
Why don't you come back to my office and we can have you fill out the paperwork.
Now, her quick perspective taking diffused a volatile situation.
Her quick perspective taking diffuses volatile what situation? Her quick perspective taking diffused a volatile situation. Diffuse. 죽을 수 없는 약수처럼 diffused or diffused crisis.
So when we take someone's perspective, it allows us to be ambitious and assertive, but still be likable.
So when we take someone's perspective, it allows us to be ambitious and assertive, but still be likable. Likable.
Here's another way to be assertive but still be likable, and that is to signal flexibility.
Signal flexibility.
Now, imagine you're a car salesperson and you want to sell someone a car.
Imagine you're a car salesperson and you want to sell someone a car.
You're going to more likely make the sale.
You're going to more likely to make the sale
if you give them two options.
if you give them two options.
Let's say option A, $24,000 for this car and a 5-year warranty.
Let's say option A, $24,000 for this car with a 5-year warranty.
Or option B, $23,000 and a 3-year warranty. My research shows that when you give people a choice among options,
my research shows that when you give people a choice of options,
it lowers their defenses
it lowers their defenses,
and they're more likely to accept your offer.
and they're more likely to accept your offer.
And this doesn't just work with salespeople. It works
It doesn't work. It doesn't just work with the salespeople.
with parents.
It works with parents. Offer. It lowers their defenses.
When my niece was 4, she resisted getting dressed and
When my niece was 4, she resisted getting dressed,
rejected everything.
and rejected everything.
But then my sister-in-law had a brilliant idea.
But then my sister-in-law had a brilliant idea.
What if I gave my daughter a choice?
What if I gave my daughter a choice?
This shirt or that shirt? Okay, that shirt.
This shirt or that shirt?
This pant or that pant? Okay, that pant. And it worked brilliantly. She got dressed quickly.
And it worked brilliantly. She got dressed quickly
And without resistance.
and without resistance.
When I've asked the question around the world when people feel comfortable speaking up,
When I've asked questions around the world, when people feel comfortable speaking up,
The number one answer is when I have social support in my audience.
the number one answer is when I have support. When I have support in my audience.
When I have allies.
When I have allies.
So we want to get allies on our side.
So we want to get allies on our side.
How do we do that?
How do you do that?
Well, one of the ways is be a mama bear.
One of the ways is to be a mama bear.
When we advocate for others, we expand our range
When we advocate for others, we expand our range
in our own eyes
in our own eyes,
and the eyes of others,
in the eyes of others.
but we also earn strong allies.
But you also earn strong allies.
Now, another way that we can earn strong allies,
And another way we can earn strong allies.
especially in high places,
What? Especially in high places? Especially in high places?
is by asking other people for advice.
Is by asking other people for advice.
When we ask others for advice,
When you ask others for advice,
they like us because we flatter them and
they like us because we flatter them.
we're expressing humility.
And we are expressing humility.
And this really works to solve another double bind.
And it really works to solve another double bind.
And that's the self-promotion double bind.
Self-promotion.
Self-promotion double bind is that if we don't advertise our accomplishments,
Self-promotion double bind is that if we don't advertise our promotion, our accomplishment,
no one notices.
no one notices.
And if we do, we're not likable.
And if we do, we are not likable.
But if we ask for advice
But we ask for advice
about one of our accomplishments,
about one of our accomplishments.
we are able to be competent in their eyes,
We are able to be competent in their eyes,
but also be likable.
but also be likable.
And this is so powerful. It even works when you see it coming.
And it's so powerful. It even works when you see it coming.
There have been multiple times in my life where I have been forewarned
There have been multiple times in life when I have been forewarned
that a low-power person has been given the advice
that a low power person has given the advice
to come ask me for advice.
to come ask me for advice.
And I want to notice three things about this.
And I want you to notice three things about this.
First, I knew they were going to come ask me for advice.
I knew they were gonna come ask me for advice.
Two, I've actually done research on the strategic benefits of asking for advice.
And I've done the research on the benefits of asking for advice.
And three, it still works.
It still works.
I took their perspective, I became more invested in their calls,
I took their perspective and I became more invested in their calls.
I became more committed to them
I became more committed to them
because they asked for advice.
because they asked for advice.
Now, another time we feel more confident speaking up
Another time we feel more confident speaking up
is when we have expertise.
is when we have expertise.
Expertise gives us credibility.
Expertise gives us credibility.
Now, when we have high power, we already have credibility.
When we have high power, we already have credibility.
We only need good evidence.
We only need good evidence.
When we lack power,
But when we lack power,
we don't have the credibility.
we don't have the credibility.
We need excellent evidence.
We need excellent evidence.
And one of the ways that we can come across as an expert
And one of the way we come across as an expert,
is by tapping into our passion.
is by tapping into our passion.
I want everyone in the next few days
I want everyone in the next few days
to go up to a friend of theirs
to go up to their friend of theirs. To go up to friend of theirs.
and just say to them, I want you to describe a passion of yours to me.
I want you to describe a passion of yours to me.
I've had people do this all over the world,
I had people do this all over the world,
and I asked them, what did you notice about the other person when they described their passion?
and what did you notice about the other person when they describe their passion?
And the answers are always the same.
And the answers are always the same.
Their eyes lit up and got big.
Their eyes lit up and got big.
They smiled a big, beaming smile.
They smile a big beaming smile.
They used their hands all over. I had to duck because their hands were coming at me.
They used all their hands. Oh, I had to duck because their hands coming at me.
They talked quickly with a little higher pitch.
They talk quickly with a little higher pitch.
And they leaned in as if telling me a secret.
And they lean as if telling me a secret.
And then I said to them, what happened to you as you listened to their passion?
And I said to them, what happened to you as you listened to their passion?
And they said, my eyes lit up.
My eyes lit up.
I smiled.
I smiled.
I leaned in.
I leaned in.
When we tap into our passion,
When we tap into our passion,
we give ourselves the courage
we give ourselves the courage.
in our own eyes to speak up.
And what? We give ourselves the courage in our eyes.
But we also get the permission from others
But we also get the permission from others.
to speak up. And tapping into our passion even works when we come across as too weak.
And what tapping into our passion even works when we come across as too weak.
Both men and women get punished at work
Both men and women get punished their work
when they shed tears.
when they shed tears.
But Lizzie Wolf has shown
Shed tears.
that when we frame our strong emotions as passion,
That we frame our still strong emotion as passion.
the condemnation of our crying disappears for both men and women.
The condemnation of our crime disappears for both men and women.
I want to end with a few words from my late father that he spoke at my twin brother's wedding.
I want to end with the story of my father. I want to end with a few words from my father, my late father. I want to end with a few words from my late father that he spoke at my twin brother's wedding.
And here's a picture of us.
And here's a picture of us.
My dad was a psychologist like me, but his real love and his real passion was cinema.
My dad was a psychologist like me, but his real love and his real passion was cinema,
Like my brother.
like my brother.
And so he wrote a speech for my brother's wedding
And he wrote a speech for my brother's wedding
about the roles we play in the human comedy.
about the roles we play